between government. And this is why we started out with Lenin, because Lenin's obsession in the 1920s is what does it mean to have a government? A government, however, that is engaged in the process of the withering away of the state as the primary project of that government. Following the commune, Lenin always at least hoped to insist that it would be possible to create a government that's last act as a state would be the expropriation of the expropriators. And of course we talked about all of the complexity of the revolution in those years, both imperial war, complex civil war, difficulties with the land distribution policy to the peasants, and some of the decisions that can or cannot be justified and still have to be addressed in all their complexities. As we know, Lenin died very early on in the process of the revolutionary struggle. Still, the question of the dictatorship of the proletariat, as Luxemburg put it, as a form of organizing democracy and challenging parliamentary democracy, has to be taken very seriously if we are to be taken seriously as revolutionaries who are not just in constant opposition and therefore, in a certain sense, constantly off the political hook. Related to that, I wanted to emphasize the need for us to think about what that means in terms of political economy. The other thing that must not be taken off the agenda is Marx. Marx made a simple argument: there's no transformation without transformation in the means of production. And I wanted to insist that anyone who thinks that we can have emancipation, I use Balabar's article with his three critical concepts, without the thoroughgoing transformation of capitalism is simply not deserving of the word revolutionary. If you don't want to be a revolutionary, don't be a revolutionary. If you are a revolutionary, you must be concerned and involved in the political economy of what it means to transform capitalism. Therefore, again, I strongly disagree with any thinker who says that we must take the questions of political economy off the agenda. As Marxists, we must keep them on the agenda and be willing to thoroughly rethink them. And the third point that I made, and here I actually am going to read from Comrade Zizek, because I agree with him here again. There must be real material antagonisms that we're talking about organizing, if we're not simply to be speaking about in the abstract that we're going to have some kind of revolutionary force or class. And Zizek labels these four antagonisms, and I agree with you on this. And they are the looming threat of ecological catastrophe, the inappropriateness of the notion of private property for so-called intellectual property, the social ethical implications of new techno-scientific developments, especially in biogenetics, and last but not least, the new forms of apartheid, new walls and slums. And again, a shared position is that the most important antagonism is between the excluded and the included, and he says there's three battles for commons: commons of culture, the commons of external nature, and the commons of internal nature. And again, coming back to the force that is involved in those demands for those commons is, in fact, the included and the excluded. Now, what I wanted to add to that, because of my experience in South Africa, is the actual movement. In just 1 second, I'm looking for a text that helps me make this point to you. We must look to the actual movements in South Africa as one example, called the movements of the poor, where we're seeing radical movements of the excluded involved in the struggle for a kind of commons. And the commons oftentimes now takes the battle against the disposition of resources. So you see the battle for free water, you see the battle for free electricity, you see the battle for free land, you see the battle of the homeless insisting on their right to stay on property that is unquestionably privately owned. And you see this, of course, famously starting in the shanty dwellers movement, who not only saw this battle as a battle to stay on their land, but then began to reorganize themselves in what they called living communism. So the shanty dwellers today continue to stay on the land. That's a prescriptive battle against the state in Badu's sense. But also, most interestingly enough, in their struggle to create a people's commons now, they've organized productive cooperatives where women sew clothes. They've developed vegetable gardens where people grow vegetables. And there are, in these forms of distribution, no traditional forms of extraction.